Good morning and welcome to All Access Hutchinson. I'm Ron Sylvester, editor of the Hutchinson News, and with me today we have Donna Davis, director of the Sexual Assault Domestic Violence Center, and her victim advocate, one of her victim advocates, Nikki Brooks. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Good morning.
And I just want to start off first by just having you all explain what you got a long name and exactly what you do on a day-to-day basis for this community.
The Sexual Assault and Domestic Violence Center, we were just talking about, every single day is different depending on what the needs of victims in our community, what those needs are. Our primary work is with victims in the community, victims that have been sexually assaulted or victims of domestic violence. It's still, I've been with the organization about 18 months, and it's still amazing to me how prevalent that is here in Reno County. We have a safe shelter house here in town with 7 bedrooms and a couple of bathrooms. Right now we have 4 families that are living there. I believe 3 of the families have children with them. So we keep people safe when they're in situations that they are fearful of pretty bad injury, or even in some cases fear for their lives. So the shelter house is a big piece of what we do. We do court advocacy, legal advocacy. We provide whatever it is a victim needs when they come to us. When someone first makes contact with us, we do a safety plan and an assessment with them just to see what kind of danger are they in, how severe is it. And then we work with them as long as it takes to get them to a place of safety.
And you do have a safe house, and you said there's room for 7, and you've got 4 families.
Right.
And there, so you're almost full, and many times you are full, right?
Yes.
And so, Nikki, tell us about, because you kind of do this on a day-to-day basis, what are some of the things that you do to try to help and keep people safe?
Okay. Well, one of the main things that I do is I typically go to municipal court every morning and meet with victims there, just kind of sit as an advocate, as a person that will sit there and hold your hand or not say anything at all. Whatever they need from us is what we will do. And we just kind of like to be there as a presence, for the prosecution. A lot of these victims are, court is a scary place for a lot of people, and especially people that have been victimized. And having someone there that's in your corner can make all the difference for a lot of these victims.
Yeah, and they may have to testify.
Yeah, they might have to testify.
Have to be a witness.
We can help, write out victim impact statements. A lot of times, even in misdemeanor crimes, victims are allowed to be there for the sentencing. So helping prepare what they want to say to the judge, what they might want to see happen to their abuser. It's another thing we do.
And Donna, kind of give us an idea about, you talked about how you're surprised how prevalent this is. How prevalent is it?
Well, just one example. In the last calendar year, we've sheltered 91 people at our house here in Hutchinson. And some of the 37 of those were children, so almost half, because they come with their moms. I was at Hutchinson High School telling students about what we do and asking for volunteer help. And one little girl came up to me afterwards with tears in her eyes. She was probably a freshman. And she said, "I am so glad that you were there, because when I was a little girl, my mom and I had to get out before we were killed. And you guys were there for us, and I stayed at your house." So that just really hit me hard right then. Oh my gosh, what that little girl would be experiencing now if she wouldn't have gotten out then. And she went on, she's with a leadership club at the high school.
And these aren't, while the majority may be women, these aren't all women who you help, right?
That's right. What is it, about 5 to 10% of the victims that we help are men, and that's becoming more and more prevalent.
Absolutely.
Yeah. As your name says, it's not only domestic violence, but it's also sexual assault. I mean, I'm sure you're helping rape victims, cases like that.
When the Hutchinson Hospital remodeled a couple of years ago, they made a space in the emergency room. You want to talk about what that's like?
Yeah, we get calls, from the police, from the hospital, whenever a victim goes to the hospital for a sexual assault. They do not have to report. However, they can do an exam. And what that looks like in the hospital is it's a completely separate room, separate from any other patient beds that are around. Very quiet, very secluded, yeah, would be a good word. And we sit with victims, we offer support. In that situation, a lot of the times, the best thing you can say to somebody is, it's not your fault, and I'm so sorry that this happened to you. And so, we're just there as another person that's in your corner.
Now, do they have here at Hutchinson Regional, do they have a sexual assault nurse examiners
Yes,
program?
they do.
Because that's a specialty.
Yes.
It's not just any nurse can do it. And I know in the past people have had to go to Wichita to get this done. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I think right now, don't quote me on this because I could be wrong, there's at least 4 to 6 nurses that are, we call them SANE nurses, which is sexual assault nurse examiners, who are specially trained in collecting the kits and dealing with the trauma, taking a trauma-informed approach to these victims. They're very, very good at what they do, and we very much appreciate their work, and we all just kind of work hand in hand and do what's best.
Hutch Hospital's been really a leader in getting this started with the remodel and putting the same nurses. I think there's one on every shift, so that's always available. As well, they keep a cupboard there in that space because when you've been sexually assaulted, the police are going to take all your clothes as evidence. So you have nothing. We keep clothes there in this cupboard so that the victim will have something to wear to leave.
If I can go back to that just for a second, because it's not necessarily the police that take the clothing. And the reason why is because if you go there for a sexual assault, you do not have to report it to the police.
I see. Okay.
Which is a big thing for victims, because a lot of victims are not comfortable with reporting being sexually assaulted at that point. There's a lot of stigma, just a lot of uncomfortableness. I don't know really how else to put it, that comes around that. And so it's not a requirement that they would have to report it to the police. But they can at least get the exam done in case they change their mind. A day, 2 days, a month later. So
what can we do? Because we hear and throughout my journalism career, covering crime, covering courts, doing things like that, I keep hearing most sexual assaults aren't reported. During the last year, we had there were a lot of women during the hashtag Me Too movement talking about it for the first time. But what we do know is that 1 in 3 women in their lifetime
will be sexually assaulted, and
most of them won't report it. So it's that's shocking. It's so prevalent. What can we do as a community to kind of help remove the stigma from this, but because you've got to deal with it before you can help solve it, I would think.
In my opinion, we need a cultural shift, and I think with the Me Too movement, with the No More movement, we're seeing that shift happening in front of our eyes right now. At least that's my hope, because it's okay to talk about these kinds of things. They need to be talked about. They need to be addressed. We need to hold offenders accountable for what they are doing so they don't continue to do it to other people in the future.
We even had a conversation at the office yesterday with some of our board members that sometimes sexual advances start slow and build over time to where the victim almost becomes numb to it. Mm-hmm. And when it gets bad, it's just kind of, oh, that's how he is, or that's how things are, or, oh, that's just him. So that part of it has to come from us and saying, wait a minute, that's not okay. That behavior is not okay, and it's not acceptable. So part of it is a shift in women that we have to start saying.
In our own thinking. You're right. You're absolutely
wait
right.
A minute, that's not okay. For years and years, we've made it okay. We've justified it that it's okay in order to get by. But we don't have to do that anymore. Nope. So there is a shift happening. There is a cultural shift happening.
And, I know some men are becoming more sensitive to this. There was I saw a meme on Facebook the other day that said, don't hug anybody unless you ask first.
Right.
You know, and don't assume that, this is okay. Even harmless, what could be a harmless thing might be, perceived as unwelcome, and you don't want to do that.
There is a whole new generation of parenting that's a little bit different. Like, I remember when I was a kid, I had to hug whoever wanted to give me a hug.
Your great Aunt Bethel over there with the bad lipstick.
That's right.
That's right.
Yeah. We had to hug her, and if you didn't, there was a price to pay for that. But now parents are saying that you choose whether you hug someone or not. You decide whether that's okay, and they're asking people to ask the child, is it okay if I hug you? Is it okay if I touch you? So that later, when that child grows up, the expectation will be that, look, it's not okay for everyone to touch me when I'm 21, when I'm 25, when I'm 35. I have to give them permission. So it's a whole new movement, and it's really, really a good one.
Well, that's great. Well, and what can we as a community do to help support your organization? I mean, I know everybody needs money to keep going, but I mean, what can how would people donate? How would and what other kinds of support do you need?
We need to raise about $100,000 a year in fundraising. So always money is an issue, and that's just to keep the doors open, keep it so we can continue to provide services. For example, at the shelter house, someone has to be there 24 hours a day. We have a 24-hour crisis hotline. Last year, we answered over 2,000 calls from people with questions, with concerns. So it's an important part of what we do. But of course, we have 5 staff members in order to keep that house staffed full time. So that finances is a big one. Another one is things as simple as victim blaming. If someone is sexually assaulted, oftentimes the question is not about the person that did the assault. We tend to blame the victim and say, well, what were you wearing?
Why did you go to that party? How much did you drink?
Right. And we don't even realize that that's what we're doing. It's victim blaming. So we can examine our own thoughts and our own thinking and our own speech about those kind of things, victim blaming. Another thing we're doing, this is probably the thing we're most excited about, we're getting into schools and talking with teenagers. We've got a curriculum that we've been teaching to groups of kids just this trimester about, it's called Safe Dates, and it's about staying safe. It's about power and control. How much should other people have? What's appropriate? How to help your friends or family that you know are experiencing these things. It's a great one. So that's what we're really excited about now, is prevention.
Okay. And how do they contact you?
Call us at our office, 620-665-3630, or jump on our website, is sadvchutch.org. The website's under a remodel. It's not very pretty right now.
Say that phone number again.
620-665-3630.
Okay.
Give us a call.
All right. And thanks for joining us today. And we'll have you come back often, because this is something that the community needs to know about.
Great.
And we appreciate you spending some time with us today and helping educate us.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for having us.